Namaste and welcome to Indic Academy, Shri Prabhunandan Murthy ji. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today in Udupi. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So most of the time, we at Indic Academy, we are focused on Indian knowledge system, but it tends to be more towards culture, art, and what we call the softer aspects of our life.
Right.
And I was just listening to somebody's explanation of the Saundarya Lahari, and
Yeah.
there very clearly the goddess has both manifestations in our natural world. I mean, her presence in everything that breathes or exists is very evident of a divine force.
Yes.
So, your topic is on the aesthetics in natural sciences.
Right. Yeah.
Would this connect in some way?
Yes. So here it is, right? The way aesthetics has developed in India is you can somewhat say it is kind of siloed. By siloed, what I mean is there is aesthetics in Kavya as a part of Kavya and Kavya Mimamsa, which is poetics. There is also aesthetics related to Kavya. And perhaps it is true with other verticals. Sorry, I'm using a little bit of an,
Yeah.
IT terms. Um, for example, maybe Natya has its own aesthetics from Bharata Muni. Perhaps it's there for Shilpa, the art of architecture and sculpture and like that. As compared to that, in the West, aesthetics is the science of beauty and taste. But that has developed in a abstract way, in the sense the same aesthetics as a foundational notion can be applied to nature, to art, literature, everything. So they have developed aesthetics as a separate science carved out. So they have gone like a foundational on based on which you can speak of either aesthetics of nature, art, or other aspects of literature and others. But in ours, it is vertical. So every branch kind of has its own sense of what it thinks is aesthetics. So obviously, Kavya has aesthetics, which is called Saundarya Mimamsa, and that is aspect of how you describe what is good or bad in Kavya, Guna and Dosha. So in order to delineate what is Guna and what is Dosha, in Sanskrit, the initial part of the aesthetics in Sanskrit was more concentrated on what is called Alankara Shastra, which otherwise is also called rhetorics. So in rhetoric. So in rhetoric, that is in Alankara Shastra, the initial rhetoricians or the Alankara Shastra, the Lakshanikas and others. So they came up with different ways of analyzing, a poem or a body of work from the point of view of different metaphors or simile and all those figures of speech. They're also called tropes. So that is one way of analyzing a kavya and say where is the guna and dosha and which type of figure of speech is applicable where, is it applied correctly or not. So that is how a whole body of knowledge over a period of 1600 years was developed in India up to nearly 17th century, and after that it reached a certain plateau, and the rhetoricians and other Lakshanikas who came later, they were mostly into analyzing what has already been said and continue. But in the 18th century, when Max Muller came to India, or the Westerners came, they started looking in. They said that Indians did not develop this notion of aesthetics at all. That was their claim. But the later, scholars in response to that have shown that in India aesthetics is there, but it is in its own, verticals or silos. So what I'm trying to do here is, that is as a part of my paper, the title of the paper is Aesthetics of Natural Sciences, an Indic Point of View. That is the title of my paper. So the premise of my paper is we have Saundarya Mimamsa, which is applicable to Kavya. and we have natural sciences and mathematics, where practitioners of mathematics and physics themselves have claimed a very high level of aesthetic value and aesthetic responses in both mathematics and physics. For example, even greatest scientists like Paul Dirac or S. Chandrasekhar have claimed that the general theory of relativity exhibits a very high level of aesthetics. It's very beautiful. And based on that type of aesthetic response, in the West, for the past 60 or 70 years, there has already been some amount of work and literature created to analyze aesthetics of natural sciences, mathematics, and physics and other natural science subjects, analyzing it from aesthetic point of view. So my attempt is, just to give an analogy again using mathematics, there is a point in space. A point in space can be described by three dimensions, Cartesian coordinate systems, x, y, and z axis. Or the same point can be described by another coordinate system called polar coordinate system. So there are two coordinate systems by which you can describe the same point. In the same way, science, the aesthetics of science has been to an extent studied and analyzed using Western aesthetic concepts for the past 50 or 60 years. That is like observing a point through one coordinate system. Is it ever possible to do it from another coordinate system? So my belief is that it is possible, and I'm trying to show how one can go about doing it. By doing that, I should admit that I'm not a full-fledged student of Kavya Mimamsa. I'm a software engineer. I work at Intel as a software engineering manager. That is my full-time job. This I have learned on my own. And as a part of studying Sanskrit Kavyas, I also a little bit pivoted into learning a little bit about Kavya Mimamsa. And I anyway have my interest in natural sciences and aesthetics. So I have corrected those. I mean, those four dots are there. I'm just trying to do a cross connection. That's why it's an interdisciplinary type of investigation I've done. So that is what I will.
Is this also by itself in the Indian knowledge system space? Do we have texts and resources to directly connect aesthetics to the physical world?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that
Like
I'm
if
aware
you
of.
see the Sri Chakra Yantra, for instance, they talk about geometry and
Correct.
within within that the yantra, and we have mandalas, we have the kolam which we draw. Everything is so precise and
Correct.
aesthetic.
Correct.
So clearly there was, and even the common man, one thing is it's always linked to the common man. It was not something which esoteric which nobody could access.
Correct.
So we may not have texts, but we do it on a daily basis in our lives. So
Correct.
how do we say that related to this?
Yeah. So one thing I can say is that the sense of aesthetics is there. Whether it has been analyzed using an already existing toolkit is there or not is the question. So to the extent that I know, I mean, I may have some blind spots and I may not know everything. I hope to learn something from this conference. To the best of my knowledge, there is no there is no Saundarya Mimamsa analysis of Shastra, right? The entire Vangmaya is having two parts. One is Shastra, other is Kavya. The purpose of Kavya is, as Mammata says, Sadhya Para Nirvritaye, Kanta Sammitataya, Upadesha Yuje. That is, when someone is going through a Kavya, he is removed from his daily, break from whatever the sorrows and sadnesses and everything, and he experiences an Ananda which is somewhat like the Brahmananda, so it's called Brahmananda Sahodara. It is like Brahmananda, so that is why that is the prayojana of Kavya. Of the Shastra, it is to establish Prama. Prama is Yathartha Gnana, that is the true knowledge, and to establish the Prama is the purpose of Shastra. Shastra doesn't really care for aesthetics by itself, but having some aesthetic value in Shastra and be able to recognize that will give some ruchi, some kind of taste in Shastra. Otherwise, Shastra is katu. It is, it's hard, and people tend to be, move away from that unless you have other reasons to get into it. The same problem happens in natural science also today. As we see, many people are not doing, maybe 50, 60 years ago, our best minds were involved in studies of our natural sciences, pure sciences. But today, many are not into it, are moving away. And many big scientists have lamented that we are not getting good talent. Number one, because other fields are more attractive from
Lucrative.
job and all those, career point of view. But even otherwise, the science itself, people feel, oh, mathematics is tough. It's a tough nut to crack. In Kannada we say kabbinada kadale, right? So we don't want to go. So there is some kind of a hesitation to enter into pure sciences, mathematics and science. But by invoking or by inculcating the sense of aesthetics and then highlighting that would probably make it a little bit more approachable. People will feel a little bit less inhibited to enter into those areas, and hopefully that will help the those areas in attracting good minds. They may do something else for their livelihood. They may do something else, but they should still be able to be involved. Because if you go back to 17th century, Newton was not a physicist in the sense of physics today. He was in charge of, I think, minting the coins and stuff like that. And same way with Henry Poincaré, he was considered to be the greatest mathematician of the 20th century, and like late 19th century. And he was a geologist. He was into doing geology to work for the French government. So greatest people were not actually like the scientists and mathematics that we call today, because it's become like a profession on its own, and others don't enter into it. But there is some role for who are not people who are not actually doing science for their day job, but they can bring in something. For them to bring in there, it has to be attractive. Otherwise, why will they come, right? So there is a case for making science attractive, and there is some aesthetic value inherent in sciences. It is just not brought out. So that is one aspect of why it is useful to do it. Secondly, as we are doing it, we already have a toolkit of analyzing Kavya through our Kavya Mimamsa. So is it possible to analyze sciences through the Kavya Mimamsa? Is the premise of my paper here.
Wonderful.
Yes, yes.
Some scholars have told me that, in India, aesthetics and ethics are very closely connected. So what is, like in English poetry, we say truth is beauty, beauty is truth.
Correct. Right,
So similarly, we also say if something is good, we are doing the converse. We are saying if something is good, it will be beautiful.
Okay. Okay.
So Indians have always had a very close connect with nature.
Correct.
So, and in nature, there are some basic principles like mathematician was saying, trees grow to a certain height because of its, certain conditions, mathematical conditions also.
Yes.
There's a reason why a certain tree grows in a certain shape.
Correct.
So there's a natural physics and a natural aesthetics already
Correct.
in nature, and Indians always were connected to the land.
Correct.
So when we talk about aesthetics not being studied in life sciences by Indians, is it also because we have also moved away from this connect with nature as humanity in general and Indians also?
But perhaps possible. I'm not able to kind of, at the top of my mind, be able to connect that. But there is also a related fact, because of your point kind of segues into that. We can come back to your point. That way is, in India, there was also a point that this idea of Saundarya and, the aesthetics was not completely conducive for our, the greater goals of Purushartha were moksha. That moksha is coming through the study of Shastras and then, knowing the greatest reality, all that, and because of which you will get removed from the samsara and all that. So for that goal of life, the Saundarya Mimamsa was not was either not needed or it was perhaps not very,
Dispensable.
yeah, exactly. So there was also a concept called Kavya Alapamscha Varjayat. Kavya Alapamscha Varjayat means you should let go of Kavya Alapa. So that is also there in India. So one of the authors in Kannada called T. Srikantaya, he has written a great work called Kavya Mimamsa. So he opines that maybe because of our attitude towards Saundarya, we did not develop aesthetics like the Westerners did. So there was notion of Saundarya, but that was just, to the extent that it was perhaps conducive to your larger
Divine.
goal. It was not, for duty for beauty's sake, right? Just like the art for art's sake, like it's not like that. It should be something finally conducive to your larger goals, as
Yeah.
your purushartha and all that. Yeah.
So, as a last question, sir, in terms of life sciences and the physical world, what is it that you find the most beautiful and best?
For me, it is always the sunrise and sunset,
Oh.
and also I'm interested in astronomy. In fact, I go to dark spaces and take pictures of, like nights. So I do astrophotography. So for me, that is the enduring beauty. So one thing I was in fact telling one of my friends recently is that everything on Earth changes. Nothing perhaps has remained same in the last 2000 years. But one thing that hasn't changed is the Saptarshi Mandala. So Saptarshi Mandala, the way maybe 2000 years ago, 2500 years ago, people saw is the same thing we see. So there is something that is common experience that we can share with our ancestors exactly the way they saw it. So that is one thing that is always very, something that draws me in terms of nature is the nighttime sky.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for
Thank you,
this
madam.
lovely conversation. It was
Thank you so much.